Germany became not only the engine of Europe, but one of the strongest economies in the world. Made in Germany became a symbol of quality. German cars were sold across the globe, factories ran nonstop, and the country seemed to emerge stronger from every crisis. But today, that system is quietly breaking down. And most people don't even realize it. Because Germany's decline doesn't look like a dramatic financial collapse. There's no chaos in the streets. Banks aren't failing. Supermarket shelves are still full. Trains are still running. Companies are still operating. But behind the scenes, the foundations that once held up Europe's strongest economy are starting to crack, one by one. This is economic legacy. And in this video, we're going to explore why Germany's economy is breaking down. Because this isn't just Germany's story. This is the story of how one of the most powerful economic systems in the modern world slowly began to fracture. For decades, Germany's success was built on three key pillars: cheap energy, strong industry, and global exports. Especially cheap Russian gas. Germany's giant factories required enormous amounts of energy to operate. Steel production, automobile manufacturing, chemical industries, heavy industry. All of it depended on constant energy consumption. And cheap natural gas from Russia became the invisible backbone of the German economy. For years, the system worked perfectly. Companies like Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, Siemens, and BASF dominated global markets. As China grew, demand for German machinery and automobiles exploded. Germany became the industrial center of the European Union. Entire economies across Europe became dependent on German manufacturing. But Germany's success also made it vulnerable. Because the system depended too heavily on outside forces. It depended on cheap energy. It depended on global trade. It depended on China. And it depended on the belief that the world order would never change. Then, everything started changing. When the Russia-Ukraine war began, Germany didn't just face a political crisis. It began losing the very foundation of its economy. Russian gas supplies were disrupted, energy prices skyrocketed, electricity costs surged, and suddenly, German factories became far more expensive to operate. For Germany, this was a massive problem. Because the German economy had been built around cheap energy, as energy prices rose, factories began slowing production. Some companies considered shutting down operations entirely. Especially in the chemical sector, costs became so high that major corporations started discussing moving production abroad. Even industrial giants like BASF began expanding investments outside Germany. The United States offered cheaper energy. China offered lower production costs. Germany, meanwhile, was becoming increasingly expensive. Ordinary Germans started feeling the pressure too. Electricity bills rose sharply. Inflation increased. Purchasing power began falling. And for the first time in years, Germany's middle class started losing its sense of economic security. And that may be Germany's biggest danger of all. Because Germany's strength wasn't just its factories. It was its middle class. For decades, Germans believed the system worked. If you worked hard, you could earn a stable income, buy a home, and live comfortably. But in recent years, that confidence has started to fade. Younger generations are no longer as optimistic. Housing prices continue rising. Living costs keep increasing. Salaries aren't growing fast enough. And more people are beginning to question Germany's future. But the energy crisis was only the beginning, because Germany faced an even bigger challenge: China. For years, China was one of Germany's biggest customers. As China industrialized, demand for German machinery, vehicles, and industrial equipment soared. German corporations made billions. But eventually, China stopped being just a customer. It learned how to produce. And then, it learned how to compete. Today, China has become one of Germany's biggest rivals in multiple industries. This is especially visible in the electric vehicle market. German car brands that once dominated the automotive world are now struggling against aggressive Chinese competitors. China can manufacture more cheaply, it moves faster, state-backed support helps Chinese companies expand rapidly, and in many areas, China adapts to new technologies faster than Germany. For Germany, this was a historic shock, because the automotive industry is the heart of the German economy. Millions of people, directly or indirectly, depend on it. Germany's export strength has long relied on automobiles. But now the world is changing. The electric vehicle revolution is disrupting the old system, and Germany adapted more slowly than expected. Companies like Tesla changed the rules of the game. Chinese brands flooded markets with cheaper electric vehicles. Meanwhile, German manufacturers are still trying to transition away from the old model. That's why some analysts say Germany could be facing its Nokia moment, a moment where a once dominant system fails to adapt quickly enough to a technological revolution. But external competition isn't the only problem. Germany is also aging internally. The country's population is getting older, while the number of working-age people continues shrinking. Fewer young workers means lower long-term productivity. At the same time, pension systems are under growing pressure, healthcare costs continue rising. So while the economy slows down, government burdens keep increasing, and that leads to higher taxes. High taxes combined with expensive energy and heavy bureaucracy are driving investors away from Germany. A country once considered one of the safest economic centers in the world is increasingly seen as slower, more expensive, and less competitive. And Germany has another major issue: bureaucracy. Large infrastructure projects take years to complete. Construction approvals move slowly. Digitalization has lagged behind expectations. In some regions, internet infrastructure still feels outdated for Europe's largest economy. That might sound like a small issue, but modern economies are built on speed. If a country moves slowly, investment slows down, innovation slows down, companies begin looking elsewhere. And that's exactly what's happening. Many German corporations are now making new investments outside Germany. For some companies, the United States looks more attractive. For others, Eastern Europe or Asia offers cheaper alternatives. And that creates a major risk for Germany. Because when manufacturing leaves, factories don't just disappear. Jobs disappear. Knowledge disappears. Capital disappears. And eventually, economic power disappears too. Perhaps the biggest problem is this: Germany trusted its old success for too long. While the world changed, Germany tried to stay the same. But this is no longer the world of the 1990s. Globalization is slowing down. Trade wars are increasing. Energy crises are becoming more common. Artificial intelligence is reshaping economies. Tech giants are becoming more powerful than industrial giants. And Germany's old economic model no longer looks as effective in this new world. That's why some economists have started calling Germany the sick man of Europe again. The phrase was first used decades ago during periods of economic weakness, but now it's returning. Because when growth stalls, production weakens, and industry slows down, Germany's entire economic model comes into question. And this doesn't affect only Germany. Much of Europe's economy depends on Germany. Many European countries supply parts to German industries. German corporations invest across the continent. The economic balance of the European Union relies heavily on German strength. So when Germany slows down, Europe slows down too. That's why the world is watching Germany so closely. Because if Europe's economic engine stalls, the entire system could shake with it. But here's the interesting part. Germany hasn't completely collapsed. It's still one of the largest economies on Earth. German companies are still massive corporations. German engineering is still respected worldwide. But history teaches us something important. Great powers rarely collapse overnight. They weaken slowly. At first, people barely notice, because from the outside, the system still looks strong. But internally, the cracks continue growing. The Roman Empire didn't collapse in a single night. The British Empire didn't lose its power instantly either. First, economic strength slowed down. Then production weakened. Then rivals rose. And eventually, the world changed. Now, many people are asking the same question. Could Germany be approaching a similar turning point? Because what we're witnessing today may be bigger than a temporary crisis. This may be the beginning of the end for the economic model Germany relied on for decades. The era of cheap energy is over. Global trade is becoming riskier. China is no longer just a customer, it's a competitor. And the world is entering a new economic age. Germany is trying to adapt to that new world. But the real question is, can it adapt fast enough